takeaway for me is Mr. Peter Obi's simplicity, his humility. Now, he's saying that, look, he has just one house in Onitsha. In Lagos, he has a flat. He stays in hotels in Abuja whenever he's there. Look, the same cannot be said for many of these former governors. And he also pointed out that since he left office as governor in 2014, no succeeding state government has even bought him a bottle of water. Well, if you compare that, I don't think he was saying that in the context of expectation. It was the subtext for me is the fact that many of these former governors, they collect all kinds of privileges from the states. They would take a house in their states, they will get a house in Abuja, their medicals and that of their families will be paid for by the state government. They will go on holiday at state expense. They just turn themselves into government children. Whereas the honor of service should be more important. And so you have an example of one governor here saying that, look, it's not a parasite. It was enough for him to have served. And I think that that is important. And you recall that in many states of the Federation, there's been, a protest against former governors who end up living a parasitic life, living like leeches, at the people's expense in their various states. Again, about Mr. Peter Obi's simplicity. I was once on a trip to Morocco. Some of these people, when they are going to London, some people go through Libya, some people go through Turkey. They cannot afford to buy, direct flight ticket to London. And that was even in those days when, tickets were even cheaper. Not now that, you almost have to go and rob a bank to be able to travel from one part of the world to the other. People were shocked when they saw Mr. Peter Obi inside the aircraft, inside the economy class, going to London via Air Maroc. In fact, the whole aircraft, just stood up and they started clapping for him. They couldn't believe that a man with his kind of background as a businessman, a former governor, would just, take the simple route to go to London. I've seen him on the streets of London before. You will see him carrying his own bag. He doesn't have an entourage. Maybe you will see him with one person, Valentine, who was my classmate at Lagos State University. That's the only person you will see with him. And he will be walking on the streets like everybody else. So the humility that he brings to the task, the simplicity that he brings to it, the humanism, his lack of pretense, I think is something to be said for him. And it came through in that interview. Second is the record of his performance as governor in Anambra State. Now, as governor in Anambra State, well, you can benchmark whatever he says about education, about government house, and all of that against, the people of Anambra. In the Anambra will have their own assessment of, what has happened, how each governor has performed. But one thing that could be said about him was that he was a very religious, leader also in Anambra, particularly with the Catholic Church, and how he made efforts to reach out to other constituencies, whether church or Muslims, and promote the ideals of religious unity. Number three, standout point for me here, was the point he was making about the state of the nation. Now, again, characteristically, he was talking about productivity. That is not enough for you to float currency, that you have to benchmark it with a lot of productivity. Well, he's been consistent in that regard. And then he says it's not about sharing money, that the state governments get more money and all of that. Well, all the things he said about the state of the nation, somebody will just say, okay, he's a leader of the opposition. What do you expect him to say? The Tinubu administration has remained consistent in saying that his reform-minded approach is precisely what Nigeria needs. As for the crisis within the Labour Party, I don't think it's something that you can wish away. That Labour Party, gave a lot of young Nigerians a lot of hope. I think it's unfortunate that the Labour Party has not been able to put its house in order. And as leader of the party, that is a question that will always, come across. But look at his humility, his simplicity. I think, he represents a different kind of example of political leadership, of business leadership. This is a man that has been involved with 3 different banks, and yet he sees the need to give account. I hope that more political leaders, will learn 1 or 2 things from his example. Complete lack of pretense.